Parts of the U.S. East Coast are under a flood watch today, a risk that has become all too common this year. There have now been a record 3,000 flash flood warnings through mid-July, as highlighted, of course, by the deadly storm in Texas. More than 130 deaths attributed to that. Many scientists are pointing to changing weather patterns as a culprit. Interestingly, though, NASA on Monday said it would no longer host the national climate reports on its website. Reports, in fact, were taken down from sites earlier this year. Gina McCarthy was the White House National Climate Advisor during the Biden administration and joins me from Boston. So I was struck by some of this because what we heard actually was that some of this information, which is required by law to be posted, as you well know, the agency that oversees that and that used to host the reports put out a statement saying, we've met the legal requirements to present the data to Congress. NASA has no legal obligation to host the global change.gov's data, basically saying, we're not going to put it up there anymore. We told Congress. Do you agree that this, in fact, fulfills the administration's legal requirements to make that information available?
Of course not, Erica. I don't agree with it. And frankly, I think it's just ridiculous. You know, it's very clear that folks in this administration are trying to deny science. They don't want people to understand the challenges of climate and to work together to try to resolve those issues in a way that will protect people. You know, it is very clear to me that if you go around hiding the science, you're going to lose, not just for them, but for all of us. You know, we can see the damages. You mentioned Texas, but it's not just there. It's California, it's North Carolina. Right now, it's the East Coast of the United States, New York and New Jersey. These things are going to continue to be challenges, and we need to fight to make sure that our government is working for ourselves, our people, our community, our businesses, to figure out how we can keep all of us safe, not to deny the science.
So to your point, in terms of the information that we're talking about here, this was information that would allow state and local governments and even the public to know what to expect, frankly, amid a changing climate with a warming planet so that they could adapt, so that they could plan. Without that information now being hosted in an easily accessible place, what happens to it?
Well, frankly, it denies us the ability to have everybody in the United States have access to information that matters to them. But frankly, it's also just a compelling reason why we should move forward beyond the 2025 report. And that's exactly what's happening with people outside. Reputable organizations, scientists that have worked on this data are now working on their own to compile the 2026 information so that people can have credible data and access to figure out how they can protect themselves. You know, it's sort of embarrassing to have the United States hiding in this way. It's very clear to me since 2007 when the Supreme Court made the endangerment finding decision to basically say that we actually did have a climate problem that we had to embrace and fix. And now we have, you know, our own federal government denying science and putting all of our communities and, frankly, our reputation internationally at risk. The other countries understand what's going on. Our country understands what's going on. And what we need to do is work together to actually know what the science tells us, begin to invest in resilience, so that we can all make sure our families and communities stay safe. And what this administration is doing is entirely not that.
You've talked about scientists going out and trying to do the work on their own, right? We're also seeing, we're seeing scientists and researchers be recruited by other countries, right? We talk about the brain gain potentially in Europe, in Canada, and other areas. Are you also seeing, in your experience and folks that you're speaking with, local governments, local officials trying to work with one another if they don't feel they're getting the information that they need?
That's already happening, Erica, and I'm grateful that it is. If we cannot rely on the federal government to speak the truth and tell us what the science is saying, then we have to rely on others. Look, I work with Bloomberg's America is All In now, and it's all about bringing states together. It's all about bringing local communities together. bringing businesses into the discussion, universities, other institutions, because we all know what's happening, Erica. This is not a shock anymore. And we all have to work together to actually develop the kind of protections we need to be resilient in the face of these climate crises. Look, we've never seen anything like this before. And frankly, unless we address climate change head on across the world, we're going to see more and more of these challenges and more of the intensity in rainfalls and flooding that we've seen before. We just have to work together. And it's a shame that the federal government doesn't want to be a player there, but instead wants to stop that. But the science will win out. Human nature tells us that we're going to have to face those challenges and hopefully in time become part of the international dialogue again.
And the reality, too, is that the weather's going to happen whether people want it to or not. Gina McCarthy, always appreciate your insight and your expertise. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica.